So real quick, I just want to film the labor and delivery story for Charlotte. I'm going to tell you right off the bat right now, I do remember exactly times and stuff like that, so I'll probably say the times, but they'll probably be all wrong. Um, in its entirety, my labor was 37 and a half hours. Charlotte was born at 8 in the morning on September 15th. She was 7 pounds, 2 ounces, 20 and a half inches long, and beautiful. Friday the 13th, I had been joking about going to the movies to see Insidious 2, and I was going to scare her out. And so before I went to the movies, around like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I took some primrose oil vaginally, 2 tablets, and then I went to the movies. So at 6:30, I get to the movies. I'm walking literally into the movie to watch the movie. I was gonna go and sit down, and I start feeling something wet between my legs, and I was like, I don't think I'm peeing myself, but pregnancy stuff happens. I might have been, but then it kept coming out, and so I turned around and I was like, Mom, I think my water broke, but I'm not sure. My friends that have had their water break, they describe it as a gush. Mine was not a gush. It was definitely a little slow trickle. First I felt it between my legs, and then I felt it going down my leg, and I was not peeing. We got to the hospital around 8:30. They checked me, and I was leaking. Very important detail, even though they checked me and admitted me because my water, I was still leaking, the nurse at that time did not confirm through a test that my water had indeed broken, which later in the story plays a big part. They admitted me. I was still only 1 centimeter dilated and still about 90% of face, so they had me walk the halls for a couple hours, in the hopes that I could try and get labor started myself. So I walked the halls for a couple hours. They checked me around like 12:30, I want to say, and still not a lot of progress had been made. My contractions were only 5 to 7 minutes apart. They really wanted it to be 2 to 3, and I couldn't do it on my own. So they started the Pitocin, and I was on the Pitocin for a good amount of time, and my contractions were really close together, every 1 to 2 minutes, but the only thing is I wasn't feeling anything, and they kept upping the Pitocin. I'd gotten at that point like about 14 milliliters per hour, which is a lot. I think it maxes out at like 30, so I should have been in a lot of pain, but I wasn't. I could talk. I could probably, like get up and walk if they had let me. So no progress had been made, and the nurse was like, she was feeling around and stuff. They didn't want to do too many cervical checks because my water had broke, and if your water breaks, and with too many cervical infections, too many cervical checks, infections, your risk for an infection goes up. So they try to keep my cervical checks to a minimum. But she checked me, and I still, again, not a lot of progress. And she was like, and I can still kind of feel your bag of water, so I wonder if it really wasn't your water that broke. And I was like, well, didn't you check that my water broke? Isn't there a test or something that you have to do? And she was like, well, I didn't do the test because you were still leaking. But we'll do it now, and if it wasn't your water, I don't know what we're going to do. We might have to send you home. And at that point, I got really angry because I had been on Pitocin for a really long time. I think it was like 8 hours, at least. And I already have really strong, opinions about Pitocin. I didn't want to be on it at all. But if I had to, there's nothing I could do. And then to be told that I'm potentially putting my baby at harm, and it's for no reason because a test wasn't done. I went to the hospital because I thought my water broke, and you would think that that would be the first thing that they check, and it wasn't. so I was a little angry. But she did officially do the test, and it was my water. It just, for whatever reason, it was just a small tear instead of a big one. So I calmed down. It wasn't that big of a deal. But then I spent the next, gosh, at least a day laboring with Pitocin. I ended up going about 23 hours without an epidural, but finally I gave in. And that was about, I want to say it was like 6:30, 7 o'clock at night on Saturday the 14th. They gave me the epidural. I felt so much better afterward. I think I was about 3-4 centimeters when I got the epidural, and I finally just gave in just because I was having really, really, really bad back pain, and every time I would get the back pain, which was about every 2 minutes or so, I could literally feel my body tensing up. And I heard that it's bad for you to tense up because that means that you're not dilating. So, or it's harder for you. And so I was like, okay, if I get the epidural, at a minimum, it'll relax me, and then hopefully all this Pitocin that they're pumping into my system will do something. So that's why I got the epidural. Plus, I was in a lot of pain, and I couldn't take it anymore. So at 7 o'clock, they finished breaking the rest of my water. I was 4 or 5 centimeters dilated, 100% effaced. I was told that Charlotte was at a -1 station, so she was still kind of high up there. Thought that because I was having such severe back pain, that meant that Charlotte was posterior, meaning that she would be born facing up instead of down. And so in order to try and change that, they had me lay for an hour I would lay on the left side for an hour with this peanut looking birthing ball, and then in the next hour on the right, and I alternated like that for a while. At 25, I was 9 centimeters dilated, and my epidural started wearing off, and I asked for a C-section because I couldn't take it anymore. I was like, I don't care what you have to do, just get her out. I can't deal with this. It's too painful. Then a reason why I asked for the C-section, number one, it was the pain. Number two, it was because the nurse said that despite doing the birthing ball thing for the better part of the 14th, Charlotte was still high up. And they told me that when it did come time to push, that I would likely have to push for 2 to 3 hours just to get her to where she was supposed to be, and then I could actually push. And I was like, because my epidural had at that point worn off and I didn't get another one, the idea of having to go 2 to 3 hours more like that was not appealing, and I was just like, just give me a C-section. I can't deal with the pain. And so she called my doctor. My doctor was like, I'm not giving you a C-section. You can have this baby vaginally. You will have this baby vaginally, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, I will try and tough it out.